updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Kandace and Denise.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. On Tobago Updates, viewers, we are continuing our carnival breakdown this morning as we are being joined by Mr. Allan Stewart, who's the director of the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, better known as TEMA. Good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning, Kandace, and good morning to all your viewers, wherever they may be across the world. It's good to be here once again.
Great. So now, Mr. Allan Stewart, you are one of those people that were behind the scenes and making sure that there was a safety plan in place. Of course, you worked closely with ACP Collis Hazel
Exactly.
for that part of it. But you made sure you were part of that apparatus and made sure that we had an incident-free carnival.
Yeah, it was one of those carnivals that we can tick off as being a successful event in terms of the planning that went into it, the operations during the carnival season, and more importantly, the mopping up after. You know, I think it was well executed. Much praise have to be given to the players because, and when I say players, I'm not speaking about the masqueraders. I'm really talking about those that operate within the security and safety, whether it's health, public health, medical emergencies, the management of security. As you know, our own ACP was designated as the goal commander for this year's Tobago Carnival. And it brought with it a level of professional input, you know, from all players. And as I mentioned, the three phases of the carnival management, one of the things was that stood out very, very strong is the level of collaboration. In the planning phase, we had the regular meetings, we had hybrid meetings, we had face-off meetings, we had training session for the first time, you know, well, not for the first time, but at a certain level of the commanders where we did a scenario in a tabletop exercise of what can go wrong during such a festivity, and it allow the actors to perform their roles around a table, and that speaks volume. To understand each other's role is very important, and sometimes we come across very sectorial.
Yes.
But when you can bridge it all together in a tabletop exercise where one can exact your role during the festivity around a table without any cost, without any loss, any injury, or any loss of damages to property, it speaks volumes, you know, and you're able to see the scenario play off. So that was one part of it. The other part was the execution, the infrastructure. For example, it is said the road is made to walk on Carnival Day, and very early o'clock we saw the Division of Infrastructure taking on a huge responsibility of making sure that the road surfaces were in good keeping. We saw the utilities attending to overhead lines. And also public health got a major test, the Carnival Friday, Fantastic Friday, where a huge amount of bamboo debris was reported to us that, you know, it is clogging one of the main arteries very close to this building.
Yes. Oh, we saw it.
when I heard it, you know, sometimes you hear something, but seeing is something else. When I saw the amount of debris, it didn't come from inland up the stream of the river. It came from out at sea because we had a rough sea in effect. We also had extremely heavy rainfall within the 24 or 48 hours of the carnival event. It really impacted the midsection of the island going further northeast.
Yes.
And I watched those heavy thunder showers and I say, wow, those of us down in the southwest may not have felt it, but it was extremely heavy, and I recognized the debris was a factor of that. And, you know, public health being notified from the highest level, I want to say the highest level, even political level, they jump onto that thing, and surprisingly, they attended to it in a they mobilizing heavy equipment to do it on Carnival Friday. Was a tremendous task, but they were able to succeed, and, you know, we were just saved by, if there were any heavy rains, you know, the malls would have been flooded, things like that. And that spoke volumes of the level of cooperation. And all the other interests in terms of one of the things we recognize about this carnival is that there were no major incidents. It was one of the carnival, coming out of it, you could really feel comfortable dubbing Tobago Carnival as, a safe carnival,
And even though, and just to stick a pin right there, because even though we had such a lot of hot weather, you would have thought that there might be a lot more people that would have been affected by the heat and so on. That could have also caused a little bit of a crisis. But
people were prepared. Yeah.
People were prepared.
Yeah, they were prepared, and it speaks to the level of communications, that went out before the festivity, and people take it into consideration. They do what they needed to do in order to ensure that they will know. I think there was only one case of exhaustion coming out of the carnival, but there were no serious incidents. And when I say incidents, most times we mark the carnival through violence. You didn't see that this year. You didn't see any violence. The security apparatus was on game. The type of network they spread themselves. I recall some of the strategies, I won't go into the tactics, but the strategies that they were seeking to do was to mitigate anything and prevention and mitigate any threat of violence coming into the city of Scarborough. And to me, that went well. And the utilities must be given their praise, the work that TSTT put into this carnival. They went up to 1:30 to 2 in the morning. That's carnival Friday night into Saturday morning in order to get it right, to make sure that all systems were on a go. The testing of the monitoring systems were all ready to go, and that helped us a lot in order to view things in a particular way, know where the strengths are, know how to make changes on the run, because you may have a plan and things may not go according to the plan. It's like the cart before the horse. I remember there was one instance where we recognized that, you need people to start the bands. And people wondering why the band's not coming through, but the very traffic management system, because of, our people, sometimes we move late, a masquerader may just decide to see that Hudson, me and Buddy with them, and I go in talk at a particular time. And therefore, as I said, the cart before the horse, you just couldn't get the band started if there were no masqueraders. And then the masqueraders now, I heard Mr. Dexter Sandy,
yes.
And I remember he communicated with us, and what he was saying to the venue operations center made sense. And, we were able to review it quickly with the TTPS, and they would have been that level of communication that he could have made those changes on the run and extend it for the next half an hour to allow the masqueraders to get into position and get to where they needed to go. And that kind of flexibility, real-time communication this year was fantastic, remarkable. And the interagency communications, even the vendors who provided service to us, they bend over backwards. We were operating in a space where, they have what you call the procurement legislation, and to make haste activities at the night moment when changes are made, it require players to go beyond. I remember up to Carnival Friday, I'm sitting in the AE1 office, and we are trying to work things out in order for procurement systems to go right. Because at the end of the day, you require I's to be properly dotted, T's to be well crossed, so it doesn't look like an L, and so you had all those things. So I think that it went pretty well. What are our next steps? So that's the operation. From here on in, I remember we had a short conversation with the Bull Commander yesterday, and he said to me, we need to meet again. I say, yes, definitely we have to do what you call an after-action review, what they call an AAR. You review things that went well. I came across a statement very early this morning. No matter how broke you are, learn to reject offers that comes with disrespect. And there's a place and a time for how you communicate stuff. And therefore, it is important that it be done with grace and, as to what you say and where you say it. And there's a time for linens to be, linens belongs to the laundry if you have to wash them, and it's very important that we allow for that space so that we could look at what went well or what went bad and come up with a service improvement plan. How can we do it better? Is having Carnival on the highway the best thing? Those are questions, good questions to ask as to how we do it. Why is it being forced on the highway? Find out what needs to be done. Maybe there's a little piece of infrastructure that is needed in order to put in your loop that is so well needed by the revelers in terms of making that circuit.
Yes.
And so do we sacrifice the highway for it? Or is it something that could land us in problems somewhere down the road? I will be able to view the congestions of the arteries that were used as the alternatives. Those conversations, we need to allow for a space to discuss them clinically, respectfully, and therefore come away with a service improvement plan that we can see Carnival 2024 being an improved product. Yeah.
So are you seeing that, as you mentioned, are you seeing that as we go forward, that the safety apparatus and that part of the infrastructure, and don't just mean the physical infrastructure, but I just mean the organization of it, do you see that as being a plus for the Tobago Carnival?
Yes, indeed. What we had this year was a very strong collaborations. Safety first became a priority for even the planners, the organizers, Carnival Commission. They did a fantastic job, Festival Commission, that is. And they were able to hear, they provided for us, they were able to accommodate us in all of our meetings. In other words, there was a table for discussion, whether it was virtual or in physically. And to me, that interagency interaction allow for things to be identified, because sometimes you see things from one, it's like the 6 and the 9, according to where you sit, you may think it's a 6, somebody else will think it's a 9, based on so you have to see systems through other people's eye. Our eyes are sharp on safety and security concerns, because to me, that is what it boils down to at the end of the day. Any little thing can mess up this Carnival. It's just it's a business it's a technical business, that you have to be very sensitive to what can make things go wrong. You don't have an opportunity to make the right impression first, and if you mess it up, then you have problems correcting it. I looked at one of the headlines. I said, my goodness, this person wants to sell a newspaper. What exactly is the goal here? But these are some of the real things that happen. And this is why planning is so effectively and so important. It's a real imperative.
And also, just going forward, do you see that, was this like the first time that we had such a collaboration or such an engagement at this level for events such as Carnival and so on?
For years, we have not seen that. This year, it really, you saw all angles. It's like a plant blossoming at all angles. It's like in the sunshine, and you saw the best of all of the sectors coming out. The type of, we started this thing with some challenges. We had challenges with equipment. We had challenges with ambulances, things like that. But because of effective planning, these things by showtime, these things were in place.
You guys got an ambulance donated just a few days before.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everything worked well. The TRHA was able to, don't worry, things will be there, and they were there. And their resources, the ability to leverage these resources, move these resources in a timely manner. There were communication infrastructure that needed to be put in place, and the chief administrator helped us quite a lot in achieving these goals that are running on tight deadline. It means that somebody had to burn the candle extra in terms of the duration in order to really make it happen. And this is the type of sacrifice and the selflessness that sometimes goes in areas of the public service that have to play a very critical role, people going beyond the call of duty. The volunteers, there were a number of volunteers that made themselves available for this carnival. Those little tasks behind the scenes that allow infrastructure to go in place and things like that at a short notice. They are remarkable, and therefore it speaks to people who give them themselves in a particular way, selflessly, in order to get it done.
Is there any improvements that you think should be made to just the way that things have been done? I know you said that you have rave reviews about it, but was there anything that could be tweaked?
Yes, certainly. In all of these areas, there room for improvements. One of the things that from the time you have to borrow things and beg for things, it means, therefore, that either something is wrong with your point towards sustainability, and so the procurement and the building of resiliency, making Tobago a smart city, speak to the issues as to how you look at resilience. And therefore, building capacity becomes quite an important chapter in whatever book you want to write. And in so doing, what we recognize is that there is a growing need that those things that we identify that you had to rent and you have to beg for and things like that, to state that you're in a state of readiness are things that point that you need to acquire to ensure that you have systems to go when something pops or when something happens in an emergency. These things needs to be standardized. They need to be a part of your operating picture so that you don't have to go through the loops to get them on a ninth moment. Carnival is one of the issues that you could really plan for, but emergencies, when they do happen, and they happen at certain magnitude, you can't plan for it in that manner. You must be able to understand that preparation is an important element in emergency risk management, and therefore it's imperative that in your preparation that you procure things in such a way that you could have it to your disposal and don't have a situation where you have to now search around for it and borrow it, and businessmen, vendors taking advantage of you in certain things. I recall some of the infrastructural works to put it into place. You have to leverage with the IQUD, the policy of the Tobago House of Assembly over the past 10 years, where they don't own equipment much. You see that being impacted, and how those resources can become scarce in a moment of time where you really need it. So do we really want to go down that road where we don't own things? No, I have different thoughts about ownership, in terms of infrastructure and machinery and things like that.
And certainly for something like TEMA.
Yeah. The agency must be able to function. I tell my staff, when they call on TEMA, that's the last stop. You can't be scratching your head again, and so where do we get it? So it's either the state resources need to come into the picture, the ability to move resources from the private sector in a quick manner. These are things that needs to be dealt with. I have said it, maybe I could say it here on this set, that the procurement legislation needs to strongly be reviewed and looked at how you deal with emergencies. You review it and you realize not sufficiently that risk management or emergencies are really catered for in the process. And that is exactly how things are going to happen. You're going to see things happening out of the blues, because we live in a time where risk is a very prominent part of our existence. We choose to live on the surface of the earth, and the earth is going up against these natural phenomena that nature is doing its work.
Yes.
We have to do ours. We have to coexist with these hazards and know exactly how well prepared we are for it. So I am listening to the executive and things that are coming out from that angle, which it's pointing to the right direction. Talking about the Department of Safety. These things are critically important if we do go forward successfully. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a matter of cranking up, how the horse need to gallop. The viscosity and the movement of things are really too slow in the country. They are important aspects of our lives once we identify them, we need to march fast towards it. The tempo have to be right. You can't be dancing out of time, otherwise you're not developing.
Quite a lot said in those few words. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Stewart, for being on with us and for giving us your perspective on how things went for the Tobago Carnival.
Thank you.
All right, viewers, so that's how we're going to leave this conversation, but we're not done yet. So please don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this break.